Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Everybody that's here and everybody that's out there on the internet land, we're glad that you're with us. I'm Doug Wilkerson with Saturday Night Live Life Recovery Ministry. And we all need to recover from life because life is messy, right?
Yes.
And I need to turn my phone off or something right now. Was it? And lost my train of thought. But life is messy. That's where I was at. Life is messy. And so in life, we have to address life. We have to deal with life. We have to recover from life. And that's not just drugs and alcohol. That's acting out, obsessive compulsive behaviors. Does anybody have any of those? If you don't have your hand up, you are a liar. Do what? Oh, you're working on that? I'm working on that. Okay. And so John says he resembles that remark.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, okay. And so I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad for you out there in video land. By the way, this is a video camera. You probably already knew that. It has a microphone in it, so everything you say out there, it is really good, so it picks you up. So we need to be careful about crosstalk. And if you want to say, if you don't want to be on camera or doing something, you don't want to come up here. But also, we'll be having interaction here throughout the night. And whatever you say will be going out there. Does anybody have a problem with me using your name here in the meeting, saying your name? And no problem. And I don't even know your name. Louisa. Okay. Hey, Louisa, is it all right if I use your name?
Yes.
I was just kind of playing with you there, Louisa. So. We do have some pizza back here. There's two kinds, but there's like 6 boxes. And so if you want some pizza, I told them that we'd eat it or carry it out, one or the other. So how's that? All right. My next thing that I've been doing for the last several months is having prayer. And so if you have something you'd like for us to pray about, if you just raise your hand, and if you want to say what it is, fine. If you just want to say it's unspoken, that's fine. That way, we're going to have prayer. Anybody? Yes. You want to? Is this unspoken? Rick? Okay. Mike?
I have a friend whose son went to jail for the first time for pretty bad stuff.
Okay.
Never been told before, never, I just pray he's okay.
Yeah, he needs some prayer, right? Yes, sir.
I need prayer. I see a cardiologist Friday for whatever's going on in my body.
Okay. All right. Okay. Renee?
My head.
Okay. I said that would have prayer, but if you want me to pray with you, I can. So that's entirely up to you. I just pretty much we've been doing it in this fashion, but we're willing to do that if you like. But okay. Yes, Jennifer.
Alpha made some ideas for respect. Which way the world turns, you're specializing in. And what do you need?
I need interpretation.
Second, speak.
Thank you. I will. We'll pray for you too. And do we have some other hands over here? John?
Life situations and just everything in general for me.
Did I miss anybody over here?
My judging people and my attitude need to change.
You need an attitude adjustment, is that what you're saying?
Well, I got it all the time.
Well, we're going to, I'd rather have God's attitude adjustment than other things. I think I do. I just playing with you. And Brandon, you had your...
Yeah, thanks for the prayers for my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
before, but,
That-
he's
couple
gone.
times.
He possibly may not get his leg amputated after all. They went to a specialist on, I think, Thursday or Friday, and they found out he still has life in the foot.
All right.
So.
And he's in Guatemala, is that right?
Guatemala.
Yeah.
And so, but it's still gonna cost money for the
Oh, you bet.
medicine. Big time cost there, so pray for resources and, thank God for that, so.
Did I miss anybody that wanted prayer? Okay. And we need to make sure that we pray for all the other recovery meetings, all those that are struggling, those that need a recovery meeting. And we need to pray for Austin because he's running a little late. But he made it anyway. He sent me a text, so I knew that. So I thought I'd just harass him. So we're getting ready to pray. Did you have any prayer requests?
Yeah, for my daughter, she had surgery on Monday. She
Right.
got
I wanted to ask you about that.
all peeled open. I got some cool pictures of stuff like that. So the doctor actually took it in the operating room
Really?
with her skin peeled all over
Oh.
her head. But she's doing good. She's back home now. Everything's moving forward. So
Awesome.
we just want to
Good.
make sure that she's just got to keep it clean because if it gets infected, then real bad deal. But we just want to keep the infection out.
But it didn't penetrate into her inside of her mouth, did
It
it?
did.
It did?
And so
Okay. That's the reason why it's so critical.
Yeah, that messed up. So that's why she had to stay in the hospital for a week because they had to put a feeding tube in because she couldn't put anything in her mouth whatsoever.
Okay. Well, shall we pray? Father, in the name of Jesus, we join together. And you know these requests, you know what we think that needs to happen. And we want to agree with those that made the requests. But Father, I want to pray for your will to be done in these individuals. Those that need healing, Renee's headache and the situation with Steve, just believing for your touch and your power. This young man that's incarcerated, we're just ask for your help, that you'll be there because you said that you always would be there, and Lord, that your peace would be there for him. Edwin, Lord, we're just continue to pray for him and lift him up, that you'll continue to touch that leg, touch those doctors, those nurses, the medication. We believe for all those powers to work in his behalf, and especially your supernatural power. And Lord, we're believing for this daughter, and we're just believing that she'll continue to get better, and that this fixes the issue. We just believe for your divine touch and healing, and there'll be no complications. I ask for John's request that you continue to touch in that area in his life. And Lord, we do hold up all those that are in recovery meetings everywhere, that you continue to touch them and help them. Lord, we pray for those that are searching, and for those that are struggling, and those that are denying, Lord, whether it's in drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex addiction, cutting, anger, acting out, compulsive behaviors, Lord, mental issues that sometimes we let go unchecked in our lives. I just pray for you to continue to touch each and every one. We receive that in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Just believe for each and every one of those, and something good happens, let me know. I left out Dwayne in that there, didn't I? Lord, touch him.
It's no problem.
Not my will, but thine, right? All right, good deal. All right. What we're going to be talking about, the topic that was selected out of step 4, because we're in April, right? So when we're April, we're in step 4, because April is the 4th month. So we're in step 4. We'll be in step 4 all month, and we'll have different topics. This topic this week is facing the sadness. Rick picked that out. He's going to be addressing that, and it's a very, very interesting topic, and it ties in with what I'm going to be talking about relapse and relapse prevention. Can you believe that? Can you believe that, Rick? How that ties in? And so I'm anxious to see how all this turns out tonight. Let me read step 4. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. I circled ourselves in there because sometimes we want to take other people's inventory, right? And how's that work out? Well, the only thing that we can really do anything about, and we're not very good at that, that's ourselves, right? So we need to address ourselves, and step 4 is really good. People always talk about how difficult and how hard it is, and I just don't think they understand the power of step 4, and hopefully we'll talk more about that tonight. Because if you really understood it, I think it's going to be good. So we'll talk more about that later. Austin's going to be reading the 12 steps. Rick's going to be reading step 4, facing the sadness. Nehemiah 8, 7 through 10. We are having the reflection of the step, but now we're going to try to have it more, hopefully, in a more of a story reflection of that step, what that step's going on meant in your life. John's going to be first, and I've talked with Tommy, and he's going to follow you up. Hope you don't mind on that, John. So, and Tommy's got a real powerful story he's going to tell, right? Right, Tommy? We went from none to 5, huh? So, do what?
Make it out of midnight then.
Yeah, well, I guess I won't get to talk about relapse. So, but I want to read a couple of quotes, and then I'm going to review our questions that I've been asking for the last couple of weeks. Because actually, the relapse and relapse prevention. This is part 3, and so we're going to. I insert these questions in the beginning, but I want to read a couple of quotes here to start off with. And okay, this is a good one by Dr. Wayne Dyer. It says, "You can either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego." Anybody identify with that one? I like the definition of ego as edging God out. So anyway, I thought that was, I wanted to read that one. See, I've got another one circled down here. Yeah. This is by Goethe. He said this, he says, treat a man as he is, and he will remain as he is. Right? That's half of it. Treat a man, shall I read that first half again? Yeah, let's do that. Treat a man as he is, and he will remain as he is. Second part, treat a man as he can and should be, and he will become as he can and should be.
One more time.
All of it, or just I'll do all of it. Treat a man, this is Goethe, and if you couldn't tell, he's a German. And so, I think from about the late 1800s. Treat a man as he is, and he will remain as he is. Treat a man as he can and should be, and he will become as he can and should be. How's that?
Can I ask you a question?
You may.
How do we know how they should be?
That's a good question.
I like that.
That is a rather complex question, but it may sound simple. But the truth is this. we all have that divine essence, spirit, spark in us, every human. Now the trouble is, a lot of us in the search of a spiritual fulfillment, we're looking for ways to address our need of that spiritual hunger that we had. We looked in a lot of artificial means to try to meet it. Do I need to say it in more plain words? Yes, I do. No, I don't. Okay, and that is that we use substitutes for God, God's Spirit, to try to feed that we were trying to feed, and that was a spiritual need that we all have, whether we realize it or not, because we are not just human doings, but we are spirit beings, okay, not just human doings or human beings, okay. So what we have to do, if we really know, if we are looking from that perspective at everyone, from that perspective, then we're really not trying to force anybody into what they can be, but we do our best to try to enable them, and we see the best in them, and oftentimes you can see in people. Let me back up. You can see in people, but I'm going to start with the negative. When we're in the negative vein of life, we can detect other people with negative stuff in their life, and particularly the stuff that identifies with our negative stuff in our life. Does that make sense? Right? And if it's true in the negative, how much more is it true in the positive? Does that make sense? So we can see into the possibilities of other people, what they can be. We definitely can see what's not in their best interest. That's a way easier to see, right? So did I answer your question?
Yeah, but isn't this true? We can usually always see better things in other people than they see in themselves. They don't see the good in them a lot of times that we can see.
And one of the reason is because of all the negative chatter that we carry around in our head that we believe, because we think all thoughts are telling us the truth. And that's one of the biggest lies that anybody could ever think. Isn't that true? And maybe because we've always thought it, or because we embraced it from early in life, or because of trauma and situations and experiences and extrapolations, we choose to look at the negative. And that stuff is deep. I like. You got me off in a tangent here, Steve, but that's all right. We talk about the layers of an onion, right? Peeling the layers back and trying to get down to the core. Well, Robert Schwartz has an analogy that I really like. He says, really, it's this stuff that's in us is really more like a cluster of garlic, where a cluster of garlic has multiple cloves, and each clove has multiple layers. And sometimes we are, and that kind of goes to some of how we're able, and I want to come back to this later, hopefully if we get this far tonight in what I'm talking about, how relapse is not a immoral act, but because we can have these cluster, we have this cluster, and we have these individual cloves, and they are connected, but they're different. And sometimes we're working on one, and we think, "Ha, I got it now," but then we have the rest of the cluster. Does that make any type of sense? I think that's the first time I've said it out loud, so.
I can relate with garlic. It grows in my yard.
Yeah, the wild stuff.
That's real garlic.
Is it? Okay. All right, good. No problem. All right, so I'm not going to read any more of the quotes. Let's go to the questions before I get in trouble here, big trouble. All right, question, what causes relapse? I know we've asked the same question, but you should be, the purpose for me going over these same questions is because I want you to think about it. I want you to work through it. I want you to be in the middle of your week on Wednesday or Thursday, and then that thought comes up. That's one of my triggers right there, or that's what causes relapse, or I see how that affects other people, things like that. That's the reason why we're going over these same questions every week. All right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so what causes relapse? Anger.
I was thinking about when you live like spontaneously too much. You don't think about what you're doing, you go too long enough.
Lack of structure.
You just,
Lack of structure, aimlessly, right? No aim, no purpose.
Depression, fear.
Isn't that, hey, I don't want to leave that for a second because it's really good. Isn't that a way of a lot of folks that maybe for whatever reason, which could be a lot of trauma or whatever, they get wrapped up in these coping mechanisms that we're talking about: drugs, alcohol, anger, gambling, sex, eating, shopping. But the fact of it is, and so those are all coping mechanisms are a form of escape. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And so and if we're escaping, so we know we're running away from something, right? But we don't know where we're going.
At the same time, we're running to something.
Well, we're using drugs or alcohol or these other coping mechanisms, but the fact of it is, we don't have a plan other than to withdraw from the pain or the situation or the fear. How about that? Fear? Anybody ever had any fear?
Complacency.
Complacency, boredom, or whatever. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Let's go to the next one. What are common triggers for relapse?
distractions in life.
Distractions?
Hungry,
Hungry, angry, lonely, yeah. Angry, how about angry?
Envy,
Envy, all right.
relationships.
Yeah, if you have, particularly when you have, this may sound unkind, but particularly when you have two sick individuals trying to have a relationship. So when you have sick plus sick, what are you going to get? Sicker, yeah. And so, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help you to get healthier and deal with this so that you can have, maybe even have some healthy relationships, right?
What?
Healthy relationships. And one of the best and most important relationships that you need to have, well, actually there's two. One is with God and the other was with yourself. And actually, it's kind of proportional, depending on how good a relationship you have with yourself really enables you to have that relationship with God. Would you agree with that? And okay, really, how good a relationship you have with yourself really affects how your relationship is with God. That's the first half. The second half is, and how your relationship with God really affects how you have a relationship with yourself. Okay, and that's the reason why I talk so much about God's love, God's grace, God's forgiveness, and that we need to appropriate God's forgiveness in ourselves so that we could have that grace and that forgiveness in ourselves so that we can release all the judgment that we have against ourselves, right? Because that self-judgment is war, right? War internally. And it spills out on everybody else, doesn't it? Hello? Doesn't it? I have a mild positive response, but mild, just mild. I mean, it's kind of like everybody, yeah, that's true, but I don't want to say anything. So.
That's true.
Denial.
Do what?
Denial.
Denial. There you go.
It ain't just river either.
It's just not a river, and that's it. All right. So, what are the common relapse triggers? We just went through that. Let's go to the next one. What does it mean if we relapse? It's the first statement out of the lesson that I'll be giving it even again.
We have to get up and go after it again. We have to.
But what does it mean if we relapse?
We're experiencing negative emotion.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, for sure.
It's a trick question.
Means we still got work to do.
That's a really good one. That's a good one. And so the biggest takeaway I want to get out of that question: do you know your triggers for relapse? Do you know the signs? Do you know the internal signs? How you're feeling, acting, reacting, interacting? You know, what are your triggers? That'd be good to know, wouldn't it? Okay. I just want you to think about that. What are your triggers? Okay? Because why should we walk blindly into the same trap every time?
Walk around the hole.
Or go down another street?
Yeah.
Okay. They may not remember that. Let's see. But you do. I'm glad. Okay. Why do people relapse when things are good? Reward themselves. I deserve it now.
So I can hit myself the next day.
Yeah. Or is it possible that things are going well, and things going well, it gets overwhelming because we're afraid we're going to lose it, and so we get overwhelming, so we get anxious, so we get upset, and that pushes us right down the same stuff that we've been, right?
Yep.
And that's from things going good.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't have to be that way, but we need to be aware. Right. Oftentimes people will talk to me and they tell me how good things are coming together, and I'll say, I'm happy for you. That's what we want. But I want to say, you need to be aware. Right?
Yep.
I'm not gonna ask how many of you I've said that to you, but you just need to be careful. I don't want you to sabotage it. I don't want you to explode or implode. I just want you to be aware of it. Okay? Okay, so that you can have more good stuff, right? And the last question, will I always be in danger of relapsing?
I hope not, but yes.
We don't like to think that we will be, but to be honest with ourselves, we have to admit that if the right things happen in life, we will be at risk of relapse.
It's really a two-part deal. If the right thing or if the wrong things happen, or the situation comes up, or if you get overwhelmed. But the trouble is, oftentimes and we'll be talking about this in my material, we don't take care of ourselves. We stop self-care. The things that help me get better, I stop doing them. Anybody here ever done that?
Yes.
I'm gonna ask that same question again because I like it. All right. Has anybody ever stopped doing the healthy things that helped you to get better?
Yes.
Okay? And if you don't, if you stop taking care of yourself, then there's gonna be a breakdown, right? You're more susceptible. Isn't that true? If you don't take care of yourself in a healthy way, and I'm talking about sleeping, because sleep is so important. That's part. Not sleeping is a relapse sign, in case you didn't know that, or sleeping too much. That just depends on your dynamic, uh, or uh, or being chronically depressed. Okay, a little depression is sometimes stuff happens and you have to process it because you have to work it through. But the fact of it is, it's about most of it, not all of it, but most of it's about self-care. How many would agree with that statement?
Yes.
Because if you don't take care of your body in everything, all right, let's just use finances. Let's leave the body for a second. If you don't take care of your finances, okay, if you spend, I've run across a lot of folks that spent money that they didn't have because they thought it was coming. I know you never done that, right? It's coming. It's coming in a month, so I'm gonna spend it all right now. And the trouble is, those folks that tell me that they were planning on coming in a month, doesn't come in a month, and it may never come. Isn't that the truth?
Yep.
And then what does that do to you?
Cause the relapse.
Oh, it can. All right. So anyway.
Unless.
So we have to take care. We have to take care of ourselves. We have, and that is in all these different areas. But we're talking particularly about life recovery here, and finances is a part of that. Health is part of that. Mental health is a part of that. Emotional health is part of that. Relationship is part of that. It's all part. Okay. And if you don't take care of it, who will? Right? Okay. So, I guess it's time to hear that statement. Shut up, Doug, right? All right. You would? Does anybody have any comments on the opening here? No comments? All right. All right. Well, let's go. Do what? Shut up, Doug. I heard. I went back and listened to it. I got it on tape. All right. Are you ready? So this is. We got a rookie here today, so be nice to him, okay?
All right? Yeah.
Awesome. Get out and begin.
So I just read just the steps, right?
This is correct.
Okay. All right, so 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. And 2 is we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Good evening.
Step 4, facing the sadness. No, I don't need that, I'm loud enough.
I know.
And it is out of Nehemiah, chapter 8, 7 through 10. If I can say it. And y'all forgive me if I can't pronounce these names. The Levites, Jeshua, Bani, Serga, Jamin, Akab, Sabethai, Hoda, Mesa, Kaleda, Azara, Josabad, Hana, and Ohio. I'm glad that's over with. Yeah. They then instructed the people in the law while everyone remained in their places. They read from the book of the law of God and clearly explained the meaning of what was being read, helping the people understand each passage. Then Nehemiah the governor, Ezra the priest and scribe, and the Levites who were interpreted for the people said to them, "Don't mourn or weep on such a day as this, for today is a sacred day before the Lord your God." For the people had all been weeping as they listened to the words of the law. And Nehemiah continued, "Go and celebrate with a feast of rich foods and sweet drinks."
Stop right there, Rick. This is the main point that I want to come back to, if we don't get it covered in this place right here, that what's going on right here, because they realized that they were messed up, and they had this great sorrow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, you may think that's bad, but that's good. What would be terrible is if they heard the word and it had no effect on them. So, and that's the reason why I'm saying about step 4 is because when we do the inventory and we realize what we've been, and yeah, you feel really sad or bad about it, that's good. That means you have let me use this term, a spiritual conscience. And that means you're in the process of turning things around. And then it goes on and says, let's set this aside and have joy. All right? And really, when you recognize you're really in a healing phase, even though you felt bad, but actually you're getting better. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Travis is shaking his head no back here, but I know it. I know it's sinking in.
Well, and too, you know, the Jewish people were exiled and they did not know the law. So they can't really be held, you know, responsible if they didn't know the law.
Well, they didn't know it consciously,
Right,
but we all know the law according to Romans. We all know it in our heart.
yes, right. But anyway, it says, share gifts of food with people who have nothing prepared. This is a sacred day before our Lord. Don't be dejected and sad, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. And I'd just like to say this real quick about step 4. You know, I hear a lot, most everybody that gets in step 4 don't want to do step 4. And, you know, I agree that it is, there's a lot of sadness and a lot of grief in this step. But I would like to say this, it says take a fearless and searching moral inventory. All right, I have bad morals, but I also have good morals. You know, so you don't just stick to one thing there. You got to get into your good morals as well as your bad. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out. I think David Stoop's one of the editors of the Life Recovery. He kind of said it best. Everybody wants to skip step 4. You can't skip step 4. If you skip step 4, you're sabotaging all the rest of the steps.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm gonna read this side note real quick. Most of us falter at the prospect of making an honest personal inventory, rationalizations, and excuse for avoiding this step about. The bottom line is that we know there is an enormous amount of sadness awaiting us, and we fear the pain that facing the sadness will bring. The Jewish exiles who returned to Jerusalem after captivity in Babylon had lost touch with God during the exile. They hadn't been taught his laws, so naturally they hadn't practiced them either. After rebuilding the city wall and the temple, the priests gathered the people together to read the book of the law. The people who were overwhelmed with grief and began weeping because their life in no way measured up. The priest said to the people, "Don't mourn or weep on such a day as this, for today is a sacred day before the Lord your God. Go and celebrate with a feast of rich foods and sweet drinks, and share gifts of food with people who have nothing prepared. Don't be dejected and sad, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." Nehemiah 8, 9 through 10. The next day marked the beginning of a festival of shelters, a required Jewish feast celebrating the Israelites' escape from bondage in Egypt and God's care for them while they wandered in the wilderness. When we set out to face the pain and sadness of making moral inventory, we need the joy of the Lord to give us strength. The joy comes from recognizing, even celebrating, God's ability to bring us out of bondage and care for us as we pass through the sadness toward a new way of life. And I'll read the questions out here real quick. And I picked this sadness deal because I go through a lot of sadness with doing this stuff because, you know, it brings up old feelings that I had and, you know, a lot of negativity and a lot of sadness. Anyway, the first question is, what painful memory keep me from going forward and writing a 4-step inventory? Describe them. The way I treated my family, I pretty much abandoned them. Also, the way I dealt with the deaths of my family and times that I was needed to help my mom get through her grief. I refused to get through my own grief. And, you know, that enabled her because she needed me. And that was something that was real hard for me to deal with. It kept me drunk. It kept me, I didn't want it. I shut it all out. And, yeah. Question 2 says, what have I been afraid of facing? And that's cut and dry right there. Shame and guilt. The shame and the guilt of what I just read right there in the first question is what I was afraid of facing. And that brings me to the next question, which role has shame from past mistakes played in keeping me from starting and completing an inventory? Shame says I'm a bad person in a sense. I don't want to feel as though I'm a bad person, but the shame keeps me in bondage because I don't want to deal with it. Number 4 is, does pride tell me that I don't need an inventory? Have I told myself that others who are in more dire straits than I am are the ones who really need it? Yes, pride has a lot to do with my decision making. I don't want to admit that I was wrong in any way, and I don't think that any of us do. I don't think any of us likes to admit that. I think pride holds you back I mean, there's a healthy pride and there's a destructive pride. And, but the pride I'm talking about here holds me back from working this stuff. There's one more thing I was gonna say, I can't remember now. Anyway, any questions?
So what would happen to us if we didn't work something like a step 4?
Well, it's just like David Stupid said, it sabotages all the rest. You can't do step 5 without doing step 4, because step 5, you actually gotta tell another person.
But step 4, correct me if I'm wrong here, basically causes us to come out of denial and look at our stuff. Is that correct?
True.
So if we don't have step 4 and we stay in denial, what does that do to us?
Well, it just, you're living behind a wall. I mean, you're not allowing yourself to go through any kind of a grieving process. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of death in my life, a lot of death from family members. I mean, I've lost all my brothers to overdoses, nieces to overdoses, one to suicide. You know, I don't wanna deal with that. But if I don't deal with it, if I don't drop that wall down and I don't deal with it, I'm gonna be stuck in that bondage, just like I was saying. And it's gonna prevent me from doing this stuff.
So then what you're saying, if you don't do step 4, then you'll be living in denial, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then you won't be able to resolve that. And you used to use the term a wall, okay? That represented other things that you used other than an abstract wall.
Alcohol, drugs, pornography, whatever.
So by living in denial and not looking at the things and working, stepping into the pain, if you don't do that, then you'll deny it, and then you'll have to find some sort of mechanism to keep that wall up.
You gotta fill that void. It's
So-
there. You gotta have a substitute, yeah.
So then, what happens if we don't have a step 4?
Well, it's like I said, without a step 4, without this personal inventory, you're gonna stay in bondage because you're not dealing with your stuff, you know, and this feeling of sadness, you know, there is a lot of sadness to it, but at some point, I'd like to think that as I'm growing older, that I'm more capable of doing a step 4 because I haven't in the past, but, you just stay in bondage, you're not moving forward, and, you're just, you're keeping that wall built up, and it's
So
gotta come
aren't you doing
down.
a step 4 right now?
Pardon me?
Aren't you doing a step 4 right
I'm
now?
doing step 4 right now, and I could stay here for an hour and talk on step 4,
Okay, but you're doing a step 4 right now,
yes.
and so my question is is it helping you, or is it just torturing you?
It's, at this point in my life, finally, I think I've arrived to a point now in my life that I'm allowing it to help me.
Okay,
I've done step 4 before, but was I truly honest about it? No, I still had reservations. I still had things that I didn't wanna deal with. I call my mom, and I talk to my mom about some things that I should have talked to her about years ago. You know, because, I realize now, and it just said it in here, you know, I'm not the only one hurting here
right,
in my situation, you
Right.
know. I need to have empathy for her, and I need to make amends to her, and that's another step, but, yeah, I believe it's helping me at this point in my life.
but you made reference that David Stoops said that if you don't do 4, then you can't do the other steps. Well, the fact, just what you just said right there, you can't have empathy or be able to really make amends
Correct.
if you haven't come to a better place.
Right, right, and I believe that's where I finally got to in my life now. You asked me, here a couple of weeks ago, you know,
I was
why,
gonna ask you again right now, but go ahead.
why I feel like that this is any different, I think. And I told you that I think age has got something to do with it. And I do think that, you know, as I grow older, I'm really wanting to put childish things away, and it's hard to do. But I believe that doing this step 4 is a little bit easier for me to do now, because, you know, I understand a little better now what I have to do to make it work. And I do believe in what David Stoops said. If you don't do it, you're sabotaging. And you've got to honestly do
You can't
it.
go forward.
You can't go
You're
forward.
stuck.
You're stuck.
You're still behind the wall.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said,
I mean, you may be better off because of 1, 2, and 3, but you're stuck.
well, how are you gonna do step 5 if you don't do step 4?
You can't.
I mean, you can't do it. You're sabotaging it. So,
Well, I'm, so far I took all the time, question, does anybody else have any questions for
Anybody else?
Steve? Because,
go ahead.
Number 4 is vitally important, right?
Yes, sir.
That's one thing. I listened to books and I studied it, and it's phrased where you can understand it, but I've never really got into it, you know what I mean? It's interesting what you're saying.
Yeah. Right, well, I appreciate that, and, you know, step 4 is an action step. I mean, you gotta take pen to paper.
Right.
You know, sit down and, you know, and if you feel uncomfortable about it, that's the reason why, you know, it's good to have a sponsor, someone that can walk with you through it, you know, because if I'm wrong for saying this, I'm sorry, but it can cause a relapse.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing up old memories and
Sure.
it's stuff that has caused relapse in the past. So it's always good to have somebody that can help you get through it. So, thank you.
Thank you. You did good, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Yeah.
That was good. I looked this up in Google, and it says there's a saying in 12-step programs that recovery is a process, not an event. The same can be said for step 4. It makes you make a searching and moral inventory of yourselves. I'm going to say myself. It makes me take a look at myself. It's made me look at what in the past has caused me to do what I've done to get me to where I'm at. And what I need to do to change my path so I don't end back up where I'm at. And it's caused me to rethink a lot of my stuff that I've done in my life. From an early age, getting hit by the car at age 3 to right now. But it's hard to, if you do it right, it's hard, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's hard because it makes you look at yourself, makes you look at what you've done and who you've been and that you need to change and what you need to do to change. And if you don't change, you're gonna end up just going around the same, I'm gonna end up like the Israelites, going around the same mountain year after year after year. For 40 years, they went around the same mountain. I'm hoping that that we don't have to go around the same mountain 40 years.
Excellent.
That's it. Tommy?
I was thinking, you guys were talking about inventory. I was like thinking about my bag, and like I pretty much know the inventory 90%. And then I was thinking about like stuff like I have something lost in my bag to charge my headphones and I can't find it. Well, I was thinking about inventory and how you're saying make a story, tell a story. Well, how going through that stuff, you know, I found stuff inside of me that I didn't know was there, so I was taking inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna read the question you gave me.
Go ahead.
'Cause that's more what I went off of. I read the other stuff, but I was kind of blank reading it. I mean, life throws you curveballs, and then I've been having a lack of enthusiasm, but it's okay. I'll be all right. So, step 4 is about a self-inventory. Have you ever had a time that you were afraid to deal with your stuff, but went ahead and dealt with it, and you were so glad you did? It was hard and scary, but it was all worth it. Well, I thought of a few different things. One I've been thinking of more since I come down here is when I first got here from California back in, it was September, the end of September in 2022. And my family had been telling me for like 5 years to come out here. Like they'd bought me bus tickets and I'd trade them in for drugs. And it went on for years, like just go, you'll like it better out there, you know? So finally I came out here and the journey was long. It took 18 days to get here from California. It was long. It was rough. It was fun at times. At other times it just wasn't. And then when I got here in Arkansas, and I mean, it wasn't even 17 hours later, and it's like 4 in the morning, and I hear, boy, get up. What? Your ride's here. And I'm like grabbing all my stuff, thinking they're taking me away, you know. So out there from years of really heavy active addiction and gone, like fiending, you know, going through all the stuff, and it's like, get up, it's your ride. And so put your shoes and your jacket on, you're going with them. And so I go out there and it's these guys in this big old work truck, you know, and there's like 9 people in this like triple cab truck thing. So I go with them and they're all messing with me and I couldn't understand what was going on. You know, I was young and I was in hillbilly Arkansas and they're all messing with me the whole way up this mountain, wouldn't tell me what we were going to do. We were going to inseminate turkeys. And I did that for like 5 months. And the guys would show up all through the winter and into the spring I did it. And I ended up saving up a lot of money. And I went and bought a car. And I made a lot of friends and met people and learned a new language. And there was a lot of struggle in that because I ended up finding the bad places to go, you know. Hey, I'm here today. The other one was when I graduated from therapy, counseling, and peer support, and case management, and completed all my goals. And that was a struggle. That was the current one. I went through that. They graduated me once, and then they graduated me a second time. Said I really didn't need the services, and I was thinking I did. And life's just very interesting. Very interesting.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
How long ago was it that you came here? You said 2022, but
I left September 11th in Modesto, California.
what year was it?
2022. No, 2002. Decades? Yeah, it was like I just got here. I'm not really here yet. Oh, that was perfect.
20 years ago.
No, 2002. I left September 11th and I got in Arkansas where I was going on like September 28th. I mean, I could have took the bus. I could have flew, but I chose to walk.
You walked?
Yeah.
That's why it took 18 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the way from, like, there was some
That
rides.
was my next question, was why did it take it?
Because I walked a lot.
Wow.
It was fun. I mean, I had a guy that I met in Wyoming, and we walked all the way through Wyoming and Colorado and into Texas, and
How old were you?
I like 22 in 6 months, 22 and a half.
I don't know.
Yeah. I was heavily addicted. I was like bad. Doug met me shortly after.
Yeah.
Like a year or year and a half later. Yeah, that's when Doug met. I don't know if I didn't make sense. I was gone. My brain, my family thought that it was done. They were like, he's gonna be like this the rest of his life. Hey, there's another positive story.
I'm proud of you, Tommy.
Thank you. I'm proud of you too.
I can use that story right there to relate to what Steve asked earlier. I remember that. Yeah, you were spinning. But there was something there.
Yeah.
And things got better and things got worse.
I was watching the new Ghostbusters movie last night, and the guy was drawing how different earthquakes, how they read on the map. I was like, huh, kind of seems like my life sometimes. I don't know. I was thinking about trial and error. I can't win if I just count it as an error. And that's my thing. I don't know. I just want peace in my life.
All right.
A little distraction, but gotta have some distraction. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy.
You're welcome.
Any comments from anybody on anything that's been done up to this point?
Hey, we're gonna step forward. You might have just a bunch of extra luggage later to carry around.
Yeah, that's the truth. Relapse and relapse prevention. One thing I want to say about step 4, that is, and I think it was kind of already said, maybe Tommy or maybe Rick, maybe John even said it, but you can't fix something that you're not aware of. And if you're living in a land of denial, then you're purposely trying to avoid it and deny it. And so, but the problem is when you become aware of it, you feel worse because now you're aware of it. That's what step 4 does, right? But that's the process of healing, okay? So you realize that you need to make a change, and then you become aware of what's going on, and then you think, oh man, now I see it so clearly. Did everybody else see it already? Yeah, they did, right? And so you feel bad about it, but that's not bad. That's good because you're opening up the door for potential healing. It's like a dentist that you have some pain, so the dentist goes in and looks, and he goes to probing around, and sometimes he pokes something and it hurts, right? But then he says, yeah, we got a problem. Well, we already knew there was a problem, but now he knows where the problem is. Does that make sense? And step 4 is part of that, knowing where the problem is. Would you agree with that? And so then we become aware of it, that we had the problem. Yeah, we feel worse about it, but just like in Nehemiah, all the people felt bad because they didn't fully realize how badly they had messed up. And isn't that what happens in step 4? We finally allow ourselves to be really aware how badly we've messed up. Because now we recognize what we've done to ourselves, what we've done to others. You made a good point, Rick, where you're talking about not only does it hurt me, but other people are hurting also. And sometimes I'm hurt because what's going on in their life hurts me. Sometimes they're hurt because what's going on in my life hurts them. Or maybe we just both hurt because we have the same situation. But the fact of it is, if we don't, how can I say this? I like this way, okay. See how that worked out for me? You should have been inside, it was all right. We will like ourselves better and appreciate ourselves more if we recognize the stuff and go to work on trying to address it, fix it, heal it. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And when we like ourselves more, then we treat ourselves better, okay? We sabotage ourselves less. We connect with people better. We just have and it's an ongoing positive life track or arc. Yes, there may be some ups and downs, but the reverse has always been the same. If we feel bad about ourselves, maybe we're not consciously aware of everything we did because we're denying it, but we still feel it. Isn't that the truth? And because we're feeling it, that affects us emotionally. And if we're affected emotionally, then that affects our behavior. Yes. And then we don't like ourselves, or we dislike ourselves a lot, and maybe even hate ourselves. And so what does that cause us? How does that cause us to treat ourselves? Badly, right? So it's important to come out of behind that wall. And I like what you said there. Come out behind that wall, and even though it's painful, it's healing. Because now you're really in the moment. And I think God can really work with us the best when we're in the moment, when we're in the now. Okay? Because if we continue to live in the future or live in the past, I believe this is true, that He really wants to be able to get us into the now, because God is in the now. Isn't that true? Now, from the now, we can heal some of the past, and we will heal those things, can heal those things, and He can help us to alter and create some good things in the future. I believe that. Any comments on anything so far? Okay. Relapse. Shall we go forward? Has this been helpful, talking about relapse? Okay. Okay. Let's go here. This is a general meaning of relapse. It is a deterioration or decline in health status after an improvement. Now, this is not just drug addiction or alcoholism, it has to do with mental health. It has to do with physical health. It has to do with emotional health. It has to do with all the obsessive compulsive behaviors. Okay, because in most cases, those behaviors are for the most part a result of being in a chaotic system. Does that make sense? Chaos. So we're trying to deal with chaos with a coping tool, a destructive, unhealthy coping tool. Okay, I'm lonely, so I seek a sexual relationship. I feel depressed, so I seek some sort of situation that will excite me or thrill me, whatever, depending on whatever your mechanism is, right? And to help escape this chaos that I'm in. But the question is, do we really escape it? Or do we just feel better for a little bit? Maybe, sometimes not even that. And that's the truth. And so, and well, I'll go ahead and talk about it now, particularly about drug addiction and also alcoholism, because you have to continue to do more of the substance to try to have a bigger high. But every time we use an artificial substance, whatever it is, whether it's an acting out behavior or substance, what we're doing is we're artificially pumping ourselves up with dopamine, which we have neurons in our head, neuron receptors, and what we're doing, we're flooding our system with that dopamine. And if we're flooded with our dopamine, your body says, wait a minute, I can't stand all of this. So what does it do? It starts eliminating receptors. And it starts trying to tamp down what's going on there. And so you're trying to pump it up, and your body is trying to help you, and it's trying to eliminate your receptors to do that. Does that make sense? All right? Whether it's thrill seeking, or whether it's pornography, or whether it's violence, okay? That's a real big drug, violence, right? That serves you in many different ways, in an unhealthy way. But, then in relapse, when we're going into recovery, using that same scenario that I just talked about there. So here we are, we're going into recovery, and now we have minimized our receptors here, and we've depleted our body of being able to make anything because we didn't need to, so our body shuts that down. Does that make sense? Did I say that again? Did you get that? Our body stops creating those things. And now we say, I've got to stop. And how do you feel when you got to stop? After you do what? Not very good. Because your body and your mind and your emotions are yelling, saying, I'm looking for something to level me out, right? Or better yet, high, right? And we're saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. And the cravings are big, and the drive is big, and it's pushing you, and it's beating you up. And in fact, there are studies been made that your brain will literally punish you to try to get you to do the unhealthy behavior that you've been doing, that you taught your unconscious and your brain to do. It will try to drive you into it because it's just trying to help you. But it's just doing what you trained it to do. But now we're in the midst of having to try to retrain ourselves. And the trouble is, we have to do that with both arms tied behind our back. Now, that's just my analogy. But here our body is not making the chemicals that we need. We've eliminated the receptors in our brain that's there. And so what happens is you crash and you're in pain. Your body hurts. You're depressed. You're tired. You're exhausted. Because you have this. Has anybody ever heard of withdrawal? These are withdrawal symptoms. I remember a guy many years ago, as a relative of mine. Every time he would try to stop drinking, he'd always say, "Yeah, I just got the flu." He had the alcoholic flu. Yeah. And do what?
My father used to say.
Yeah. And anyway, of course, we knew what was going on, but we couldn't puncture his denial right at that moment. It would have been a negative result, right? Yeah. And so we have all this going on, and that's the reason why relapse is so possible, particularly in the first 90 days. Okay, they say that 60 to 90 percent of everyone that goes into recovery has a relapse in the first year. Why? It's not because they don't want to have recovery. It's just hard. It's challenging. It's tough. And particularly if you're doing it for the first time, you have no idea what's out there in front of you. I mean, you maybe have heard about it, maybe you've seen people about it, but the fact of it is, until you have experienced it, it's a little bit different than just external information, because now you had internal information because you're experiencing it. Am I telling the truth?
Yeah.
Okay, and so, and it takes a lot, okay? It takes a lot from you, and it takes self-care, it takes support, it takes education, it takes learning, it takes a lot. And when people would come to me, and I know I've said it a lot, but when they come to me and they said, well, I've had a relapse, after sometimes quite a bit of a clean time, but something happened and they just, I just say, well, what did you learn? Okay. Hey, I developed that before I ever got into, I don't know for sure how long. It's been 25. Well, my daughter's 35, and I remember saying to her when she made a mistake, I'd ask her what she learned. And it's probably when she's a teenager, preteen, because I knew that it's not so much about what you did, it's what you learn from what you did that matters. It may sound weird, but I believe it to be the truth. Okay? And so, because the fact of it is, relapse is not a moral issue, even though everybody thinks that because of these acting out and this behavior, that means you don't have any morals. And you made a statement a while ago, and I almost wanted to say something when you said it, that you had bad morals and you had good morals. Well, I don't know. I've been thinking about your statement there because but see, the trouble is, I know that our brain, we have two spheres. No, that's not the right word. We have two. It's a half, and both half. If we were to take out what connects the right hemisphere, there you are, and the left hemisphere, they would operate independently. And in fact, they say could have and probably would have two different personalities. Okay, and I think that, as I said earlier, that God has given us this spark of divinity in all of us, and some people have tried to resolve issues in their life, trauma, situations, difficulties, heartaches, and with whatever tools they had, and most of them were not healthy tools. Okay, but it was a way of doing it. A lot, from what I understand, a lot of alcoholics actually are using alcohol to try to medicate their anxiety and their depression. Would you agree with some of that? But it's all for a reason, and that is trying to get better. Okay? Now, that doesn't make you a bad person. All right? You say, well, I did bad things. Well, have you ever heard of any Apostle Paul? Let's just use him, because I always like to use him, because that kind of helps eliminate some things. Apostle Paul, and I have it in my notes for later on down in the lesson, but we're not going to get to it tonight. And so, but in Romans chapter 7, he talked about, that I would do.
Oh, wretched man that I am.
Yeah.
I would do, I want to do that I want to do, I don't do.
Right. And so if he was doing those things that he didn't want to do, did that mean that he was immoral?
I think that's choices that I make does not necessarily define who I really am.
And what I want to say about right there, even though when you were making those bad choices, there was that moral part of you that knew that was a bad choice.
Yeah.
Even though you may have been picked up by the internal forces or external forces and carried away into that, and it's not an excuse, it's just a reality, because when we go into that, our brain is such a fascinating thing because it will shut down areas and only operate certain other areas, particularly our amygdala, and I talk about that a lot, but it shuts down other areas. And I'm saying, and I've looked at this moral statement a lot, and step 4 talks about a moral inventory, and I think it's just wanting. It's been that word in that step has been interpreted in many different ways, and I think a lot of them weren't correct. All right. Of course, I think my opinion is correct.
That's a good one. How's that work for you?
Do what?
How's that working out for you?
Well, I do a lot of battle internally over my things, but at the same time, I feel like if I'm not authentic, if I don't bring that I have and that I understand and I feel like that possibly God has given me, then I don't think I'm doing all that I'm supposed to do and be. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So and that's hard for us to do, in case you didn't know, because we like to be accepted and approved by others. So to be that, you have to be like everybody else. And I have a problem with being like everybody else because I am unique, and I feel like I see things, and not that I want to be contrary just to be contrary, but because I feel compelled, and I kind of got off my track there a little bit, but hopefully that's okay. And so we have all this stuff going on, and it's not easy. And one of the biggest signs in what you said earlier was really good. It's not that we are bad, it's that we haven't learned enough. We haven't grown enough. We haven't practiced enough. We haven't done enough self-care, enough maintenance, self-maintenance. We're still dragged around by our negative thinking, and man, that's big stuff. All the trash thoughts that we carry around inside of us. And then we have this nervous system that has been programmed by our life, and it picks up and knows things and does things and reacts to things, and we're not even conscious or emotionally even aware of it. And I know that's kind of deep out there, but anyway, we'll eventually probably talk more about that. So I haven't got through the first paragraph yet. But do what? Okay, it's because you're talking too much. Is what the problem is. All right. But this information that I've given about the 40% to 60% of individuals that relapse in the first year, that's from the National Institute of Drug Addiction. So that's from their research. Okay. All right, and I wanted to talk about those, but there's no sense in talking about those because I only have a few minutes left. And so I want to go ahead and jump over, and we're not going to get very far on it. My wife told me not to worry about being prepared tonight. Says you know enough already, and so.
Good woman.
Well, I told her I don't know about that. So anyway, one of the biggest things that we can learn, and this is so important, is to know the triad of relapse. The triad of relapse. And I mentioned it last week. What it is, it's the mental, it's the emotional, it's the mental, and it's the physical, okay? And I'm gonna just, because I went and did some more research on top of what I got off of Psychology Today, that was really good. A lot of it said the same thing that they had, but they had some more into it. But because I only have a few minutes left, I want to go ahead and I'm just going to kind of highlight it. Is that okay? All right. All right. The three here, and it kind of comes in order. And the first one was the mental relapse, and that is where you have this internal tug of war, and that's kind of what we've been talking about already. That internal tug of war, that because the parts of you that are used to the way things were wants to be that way, but you said, no, I want to change. I want to do things different. And the trouble is, it's a tug of war, and we're not for sure even where we're going, and we're not even for sure all of what we need, and we're not for sure if we could even make it, but we're trying. But there's that tug of war in there. Would you agree with that? And so, and the power, the negative forces are great because they're not only in us, they're around us, right? They're all around us. And that doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it's stinking hard, right? And that's the reason why we need to recognize the relapse signals. And the first one is mental relapse. We have that tug of war going on. We romanticize the past drug addiction. Do I need to go into that anymore? We tell the stories, and we relive it because in fact, there's some of it that gives us pleasure. But the fact of it is, that's taking you back, not forward. Right? All right. And so we need to change our old friends. Why? Because you remember when you were using with them, when you did stuff with them, and there things they say can trigger you. Where they're at trigger you. Just them can trigger you, right? Isn't that true? All right. And so so that's a trigger, and you need to know about it. And if it's a trigger, are you going to allow yourself to be cut with those triggers? How much can you take of the being cut? Right? Or poisoned, how about that? Mentally, okay? Or emotionally, or physically. All right, so. Well, we do it to ourselves physically, and we sometimes set ourselves up, okay?
I was thinking our friends were poisonous.
Oh, well. They may not do it with rat poison, but they may do it with other, like substances, right?
Poison our mind.
Poison our mind, or give us fear, overload us with stuff, right? So we need to change, watch our lies, because we'll lie to ourselves, we'll lie to others. And the biggest lie is the one you tell yourself, like, well, I can do one. It's all right. Nobody will see it, right? I'll go to a different part of the country. They won't know me there. I have found out almost every part of the country I've been in, there's people there that know me.
Right, yeah.
And if they don't know me, they know somebody that knows me.
It's a small world.
Right? I'm telling you the truth. It happens all the time. Not that I'm all over the place all the time, but it happens. It's surprising. And the fact of it is, we can't hide. And we can't hide from ourselves. And if we do it and we diminish our own appreciation of ourselves. If we do stuff that causes us to dislike or hate ourselves, that's gonna negatively affect us, and that could be a trigger too, right? Okay. Okay. So the mental relapse is there. You may not even think about drugs or acting out at this time, or drinking, right? But if you put yourself in these situations, here's one: prolonged isolation. Okay, prolonged isolation. You hide yourself. You limit your self-care. I think I'm gonna tell this story in the end with it, because and I thought about this tonight driving in. So I'll just give it to you, all right? Because I hadn't planned it until I was driving in. It was come up in my thinking. Several years ago, it's been probably 25 years ago or more, I was in my world was, I felt like it was crashing in, because it was crashing in. And it was overwhelming, and I was asking God for help, and I was praying, but I finally reached the conclusion that there was no way out of this. Anybody ever felt like that? I felt that way, because I couldn't figure it out. I needed money. I went to the bank to borrow money, and they said, sure, we'll loan you money, but you have to have $150,000 in the bank. I said, well, if I had $150,000 in the bank, I don't need your loan. You know what I'm talking about? And up to that time, I had people wanting to loan me money, And so, but it was stuff that was going on. I took it personally, but it wasn't just about me personally, but I felt like it was. You know what I'm talking about, how that is? And so to fast forward here, I realized I hadn't been taking care of myself with self-care. I wasn't taking care of me. I was running off of the old stuff, the past information or whatever. I wasn't studying, I wasn't preparing, I wasn't digging, I wasn't doing what I needed to do. Does that make sense? And I realized I got to turn this around quick. And I remember I started watching a program on TV that had to do with teaching and testimonies, and it was a Christian show, and it was like at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I made a commitment that I was going to be there. I researched stuff that they talked about. I investigated, and it wasn't long that I felt better. Does that make sense? All right, I felt better. I felt stronger. I felt more clear. I felt more confident. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. And my situation that I was in, because I realized that I didn't totally rely on God, because I was relying on me mostly, and there wasn't much of me to rely on. Does that make sense? Right. And but that connection and that self-care helped me to really realign me. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of my story there to help you understand that that's the way it is for all of us, for always. Would you agree? May the Lord bless you, keep you, and may His face shine upon you and give you His peace. You're welcome. And make healthy choices, right?
Yeah.